Welcome to the Dental Team Podcast. I'm your host, Kiera Dent, and I have this crazy idea that maybe I could combine a doctor and a team member's perspective because let's face it, dentistry can be a challenging profession with those two perspectives. I've been a dental assistant, treatment coordinator, scheduler, biller, office manager, regional manager, practice owner, and I have a team of traveling consultants where we have traveled to over 165 different offices coaching teams. Yep, we don't just understand you, we are you. Our mission is to positively impact the world of dental, and I believe that this podcast is the greatest way I can help elevate teams, grow VIP experiences, reduce stress, and create A-teams. Welcome to the Dental Team Podcast. Hello, Dental Team listeners. This is Kiera, and you guys, I hope you are ready to dive into some fun topics. I honestly love the podcast because I get to meet really cool people that keep me up to date on things that I would never go research on my own. And that's why I'm bringing in two of my favorite people. If you guys haven't heard of them, go check out their podcast. It is Eide Bailly. I've got Scott and Jon with me here today. Scott, you guys have heard him before. Scott Haberman, truly one of the top-notch CPAs that I refer to all the time. Eide Bailly is incredible. We've got Jon here. He's going to be diving into employee retention credits, all things tax, all things high level of standardized chart of accounts, like all the things, again, that I would never, ever, ever research on my own free will, but things that make you a much higher, more elite business owner and give you more safety and security. So Scott, welcome back. How are you today? Let's start with you first.
Doing very well, Kiera. It's always a blast to be on your podcast. It's a lot more energetic than diving into tax returns. So it's fun to be here.
I don't know if I ever told you, Scott, but there was once upon a life for me where I actually worked at a CPA firm. It was a, summer gig. I got it off of, what are those when you go and a temp agency? That's how I got it. Yeah. And I remember sitting there and I was like, I don't think I could ever work here for real. I am way too outgoing, loud, wanting to have a good time. Like they didn't even have the radio on. And I thought, oh no, I don't know if I could do this, but they did tell me the same thing. Like, Kiera, you just brought a ton of fun into our CPA firm. So good times always. And then Jon, welcome to the show as well. How are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, anytime. So Scott, will you just quickly fill people in? If they haven't heard of Eide Bailly, let them know, what is Eide Bailly? Who is it? Like I said, Scott, I refer to you guys all the time for high-end CPAs. I love what you guys do. So just fill people in on what Eide Bailly is if they haven't heard of you guys.
Sure. So we're a regional CPA firm. We're actually based out of North Dakota of all places. I'm out in Fort Collins, Colorado, about an hour north of Denver. Jon's actually out of our Denver office, and we have locations essentially in every medium to large size city, kind of west of the Mississippi, or pretty much most of them. And so all of us around the firm focus on key industries, and my focus is dental practices, particularly growing and emerging dental practices. And so us and a couple folks in California are really essentially leading that group across the firm. And we serve, I'd say about 500 dental practices nationwide. So we really try to bring extra value than just your CPA down the street and help folks understand their numbers. Are you operating as profitably as you could be? What kind of metrics should you be hitting and should you be striving for to be a real successful practice? And so we go outside of the tax returns and the accounting services and try to go deeper with our clients as much as they'll allow us. So that's us in a nutshell.
I love it. And I love Eide Bailly. And I think I don't know if I ever told you or if you know, but Reno has every year in September, they do the balloon races out here in Reno. And there's always an Eide Bailly balloon. And I'm like, I know them. Like, they're great.
There you go.
So I don't know who is the balloon. I think it's like a balloonist or something like that flies the balloon. I don't know if you guys know them, but it is always fun to see Eide Bailly out there. And truly, I just love sending clients to you because you are dental specific. And I think some clients will say, Kiera, is it really worth going to a dental CPA? And I just think, yes, because you guys are in the weeds of the industry we're in. Like I've tried, Scott, to convince you to work with me about, I think I'm on like 7 times, and you keep telling me like, Kiera, we work with dental practices. And I'm like, okay, I get it. I get it, guys. I'm not a dental practice, but I really just love what you guys do. So Scott, let's kick it off. You had an interesting topic that you wanted to dive into of standardizing chart of accounts, which guys, like don't tune out yet, because this was one of the most game-changing pieces for me in my practice and in my company, because I didn't even know what the heck standardized chart of accounts is. So Scott, I'm just going to kind of let you like riff it in, and then we'll pull Jon in. Jon will talk about employee retention credits. But Scott, take us away with this like standardized chart of accounts, how that can benefit practices, things you're seeing with those 500 plus offices you're working with currently.
Sure. And I think that's probably a topic that you talk about with your clients as well when you're going in and visiting them. And show me your P&L, right? Show me your balance sheet. What does it look like? And it's always, it could be on the back of a napkin, or it could be pretty darn close to perfect, but there's always room for improvement. So standardizing your chart of accounts is really, okay, how are you classifying and coding your expenses? And how does that look on the P&L? Can we determine how do we get to that next level based upon, all right, here's our advertising costs. Why are they 20%? Especially when we're maybe taking insurance as well, because that already has marketing built into it, really, right? And so it's really trying to get down to the nitty gritty and improving your profitability. And the only way to do that is having that clarity in those financial statements. Okay, what do those financial statements look like? I always use the methodology or the analogy of garbage in, garbage out. Okay, we have, I don't want to say garbage financials, but they're in pretty bad shape because you can't tell what from what. So you can't make good decisions. And so that's the key of having a strong dental specific standardized chart of accounts, so you can make actually good decisions with actionable information from your financial statements. And I think that's been key for you, probably in your own situation. And then also some of the clients that you're visiting is, okay, show me your chart of accounts. All right, we got to do some work here so we can pull the numbers out and take some steps to get to the next level.
Right. And I'm going to sound like such a total noob. I didn't know that you could even change your chart of accounts. I didn't realize that you could like rename them or add new things in there. Like QuickBooks just gives you a generic of like, this is what most businesses do. You can actually make those really detailed in. So like last year, I asked them to change on our business. I wanted a line item of how much my hiring cost is costing us. Like, how much am I spending on these ads every single month to actually hire people? I had no clue I was spending $15,000 in the course of a year on ad spend. Like you said, having that broken down more clear helped me as a business owner make smarter decisions, because I mean, I was just at an office the other day and we were going through it because their overhead's high. So when overhead's high, my first thing I go to is let's line item every single expense in that P&L. Well, their payroll was really high. And I'm like, what is in there? What is there? And they're like, we have a new 401k. And like you said, it's where do all these things get allocated to see, is the percentage of expenses within payroll, within supplies, within labs, within marketing, how much are we truly spending on those as a total percentage of our overall collections, to make sure that we're in a healthy alignment. So Scott, if someone's listening to this and they're like, I don't even know where to start, like, what do you guys recommend other than obviously working with a dental CPA? This is why I like dental CPAs, because you know what the averages should be of payroll, of labs, of supplies, so you can give them industry standards. But if someone's even like, where do I start on this on my P&L? What would you suggest that would be a good starting place?
I think sitting down and talking to your bookkeeper or your CPA and saying, hey, do you have an example of a chart of accounts that you can help me get to that's truly dental specific, so I can make sure that I'm operating on full cylinders? And maybe a quick hack is, I think that, like you're talking about percentage of revenue, putting into that description, dental supplies, parentheses, okay, 4%. And so once you're running that P&L based upon a percent of revenue, you see that, okay, it's showing at 6%. Well, right in your description, right there is 4%. So you can see that you're already, you're over 2%. Okay, let's dig into that. And so you could do things that are pretty darn simple with little small changes there. And it's just working with your bookkeeper. Maybe your office manager knows how to use QuickBooks. And I know that there's online classes too, where if your office manager wants to sit in and develop their learning, they can do so. But I think it's really sitting down and talking to your bookkeeper or your CPA and opening that conversation up.
And I think like what I would say, because I've gone to a lot of conferences where I feel dumb and what they're talking about feels like they're speaking a completely different language. So if you're feeling that way right now with what Scott and I are talking about, and soon to be Jon, I would encourage you to go ask your bookkeeper these questions, because what we just said, if it even sounds Chinese to you or another language that you don't understand, those are the areas that you should learn to be a more sophisticated bookkeeper, like a business owner, in my opinion. And these are the things that really can save you a lot of money. Like when I looked at I was like 15 grand on ad spend, like that's absurd. But I never would have seen it if my charts were all messy. And for me, I used to have two businesses merged into one. That's why I know any office that has multiple practices on one P&L, don't do it. Scott and I agree all day long. Have separate ones, have separate QuickBooks, because I have personal experience of having two businesses mixed into one. It was a hot mess. I had no clue what my expenses were, which business was being profitable, which one was carrying the load. And so that was where I had my like first real let me learn how to like separate this out. And it took me a good probably year to 2 years to get my books cleaned up, to move things around, to reallocate, to go back. And so I think those are pieces that for me, I would take action on this sooner than later, because the sooner you can have cleaner books, the sooner you can have cleaner information, the sooner you're going to be making smarter decisions, which will ultimately lead to more profitability.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Said it better than I could, Kiera. So nice
Guys,
work.
I mean, I just worked at a CPA firm for a little. I just hang out with you guys all the time,
We
and
have
you
an
make me
opening if you want a
smarter.
career change, okay?
Can I? All right. I mean, I could try it out. I might be a little lively, but I think it could work. Bring a little parties, confetti,
That's right.
all that jazz. I did love sending you guys a candy piñata for the holidays. I was like, I think this fits their style. You guys sent me beautiful pairs that were amazing, and I was like, I think we both have our niche. Like they're way more sophisticated. I'm more party. But Jon, I want to tie that into, I know you've been working with a lot of practices on employee retention credits, which I don't know. I don't understand. I feel like I'm reasonably savvy in this area. So take us away on like what these employee retention credits are, because there's so many things I feel in a business you can take advantage of, but we just lack the knowledge of knowing. And so we miss out on opportunities right in front of us.
Sure, and thanks for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity to share all this stuff. It was interesting that before we kicked this off, Scott had mentioned our dental group in Michigan that we recently helped get a bunch of employee retention credits. We actually got them $1.2 million worth of employee retention credits across their 5 dental practices there. And they just called me out of the blue right before this podcast, actually, to let me know that they started receiving their checks in the mail from the IRS. And, it's just, he was so appreciative of it. And one of the comments that he made, though, was that he couldn't believe how unaware other dental practices were of the employee retention credit. He had mentioned it to his colleagues and people that he knows up in Michigan, and a lot of them hadn't heard about it, or they had loosely heard about it and their CPAs weren't doing it, or just a bunch of different reasons why they haven't necessarily taken full advantage of the employee retention credits. And a lot of it just boils down to being aware of what they are, how you qualify the dollar amounts, and just the fact that these are real legitimate things, because like I said, $1.2 million is a lot of money to be getting from the IRS as a check in the mail.
Mm-hmm.
So
Jon, you won me over with the 1.2 million. I'm like, all right, tell me what this is. How do we sign up? How do I qualify?
Yeah, definitely. So the stimulus programs were a super important part of dealing with the pandemic. It was PPP1, PPP2, the HHS funds, or even just state and local grants. Those all helped dental practices stay afloat for the last couple of years. But unfortunately, those all ran out, late last year. And even just looking at the news and looking at the stock market today, it still feels in a lot of ways like we're still in the pandemic. We still have major business problems, but all these stimulus programs are all gone now, except for the employee retention credit. And this one actually doesn't even start to go away until middle of 2023. Wow. So there's still quite a bit of time to take advantage of these. So I gave the example of the $1.2 million in credits. So how do we get there? I think is a good question to ask. The credit is based off of what you paid your employees in 2021 and 2020. And there's two credit regimes or two credit rules to this. And we'll kind of unpack those separately. But for 2020 employees, you can earn a $5,000 per employee max. And in 2021, you can earn a $7,000 per employee per quarter max. So just take 5,000 or 7,000 and start multiplying that by the number of employees that you had in those years. And if you're talking 2021, multiplying by quarters, and you get to pretty high dollar amounts pretty quick. And so just a little bit of history on where this credit came from. The credit was actually part of the original CARES Act, which was the act that created the PPP loans, which I think dental industry clients took a lot of advantage of those, whether it was PPP1 or even PPP2 is great as well. But when that first came out, it was either you could do employee retention credits or you could do PPP loans. And the PPP loans were just a little bit more lucrative and a little bit less complex in the rules. So I would say 95% of my clients opted to do PPP loans.
Sure.
So then we fast forward to December of 2020, if we can remember back that far, which seems like 5 years ago at this point. But they did another round of stimulus in the the Consolidated Appropriations Act. And that one changed the rules on ERC. That rule change was you could take ERC and PPP. So now, everybody that took PPP loans and didn't even think about ERC all of a sudden qualifies for it. And they also extended the rules and enhanced the credit as well. Originally, the credit was just set to expire at the end of 2020, and then it was gone. They extended the rule into 2021 and made it a per quarter calculation. So they extended it into the first and second quarter of 2021. And then in March of 2021, there was another stimulus plan, the American Rescue Plan. That one extended the ERC credit into Q3 and Q4 of 2020 as well, or 2021 as well. Unfortunately, Q4 of 2021 got sacrificed as a pay for in the infrastructure bill. So we're only left with Q3, and we'll get into it a little bit more, but a selective group of clients can actually still qualify for Q4 of 2021 as well.
It's crazy.
So,
That's a lot. I'm like, okay, so what's the catch, Jon? Like, I'm sure everyone's like, okay, I have 5 employees, 10 employees. I had them in 2020, 5,000 times 5. I'm doing pretty good there. Then I've got 7,000 times 5 times 4. I'm doing really good there. There's got to be a catch. How did it work? What are some of the parameters people are looking for? Or do they just need to contact you to find out? Because I think a lot of people could qualify for that, but what are kind of like the minimum requirements to qualify for this?
All right, doctors and teams, who's thirsty for more? Well, if you are that office who wants to just ramp up and you're thirsty for more knowledge and education and hot topics, well, guess what, guys? On the third Thursday of every month, that's right, third Thursday of every month, our team, Dental Aid team, is putting on a free webinar for you guys. So it's from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. So that's 5:30 Pacific, 6:30 Mountain, 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern, sorry, Easterners, but it's Thirsty Thursday where we hit hot topics for you guys. It is free. Come join us. go to our website, thedentalateam.com, register, totally free, guys. We are there to answer questions, and it's always on hot topics. Can't wait to see you, the thirsty for more offices, joining us for Thirsty Thursdays. Let's raise a glass to that.
The catch is the government isn't just giving the money away to everybody that got a PPP loan or had a business or anything like that. There are some rules that you do have to qualify for to get the credit. There's 3 ways to qualify, and we'll unpack each one of them a little bit after I list them out here. There's a way to qualify based off of a revenue decline in a quarter. There's a way to qualify if you were subject to governmental orders, like from the state health department or the governor, or even if the feds somehow shut you down. If you were subject to an order that limited commerce, you could qualify that way. And then there's the recovery startup business. So if you started, or in some cases even acquired, a practice after February 15th, 2020, you may qualify just based on that fact alone.
Wow. Okay.
So each one of those ways to qualify does have some complexity to the rules, and that's why it's good. And I don't think we can cover those in our time here for sure. But that's why it's good. You highly recommend reaching out to Eide Bailly, reaching out to a tax professional to help you navigate this, because it's complex. There's tax returns involved, and there's just a lot of issues that need to be discussed to make sure these are good credits and that you don't have to worry about cashing $1.2 million from the IRS.
Right. So Jon, I normally wait till the end for people to connect. There's still more to go on that I want to bounce back to Scott on. But Jon, if people, I know I want to. So how can people connect with you or with Eide Bailly directly to see if their practice qualifies, to see if they could benefit from this? What is kind of the best way to connect with you right now so we don't miss this connection piece right now?
I would say just email myself or Scott, and we'll connect the dots from there.
Perfect. And what is your best email, Jon?
jstanfield@eidebailly.com.
So just like it sounds, guys, J Stanfield, STANFIELD @eidebailly.com. And Eide Bailly is EIDE, and it's BAILLY.com. I never can remember. I'm like, is it 1 L, 2 L's? I think it's 2. So 2 L's, guys. So Jon Stanfield @eidebailly.com. Reach out, guys. To me, I feel like that would be one of the most beneficial emails you could send out. Scott is Scott Haberman, HABERMAN, and he's got 1 N, so 1 B, S Haberman @eidebailly.com. So reach out to them, guys, find out. I truly feel like, why not try? It's not something why not find out if you could qualify? Because there's no reason not to, in my opinion. So Jon, that was very beneficial. Any other things people should know? Like if they are going to reach out, should they have some things put together so they're prepared for the call? Anything that they can prepare for, or is it really just reach out and we'll let you know everything we need to do?
I would say reach out first, and then we'll give you a checklist. If we don't have something we could just post to this meeting, we'll just email you a checklist, a basic questionnaire back that will help us gather some initial data to see if you qualify.
Awesome. Very cool. All right. And Scott, I want to pivot back to you, because I know we talked about chart of accounts first, and then we went into employee retention credits, but I'm just curious, as like an overall theme from all the practices you guys see, what are maybe some key metrics that practices should be watching from your perspective, that like, if I was only watching 3, maybe 10, like what are the key things that are going to keep me as a business like super savvy from a tax perspective, from a financial perspective, that you're seeing overall?
Sure, absolutely. And before I jump in there, I always am the Debbie Downer with tax statements sometimes. And so, by the way, the ERC credits are considered taxable income. And so even though you might get, say, $1 million cash from the IRS, that is considered taxable income. So that's a downside
So
of the program.
basically,
But still,
the IRS writes us a check so we can write them a check back.
that's right.
Got it.
But
Okay.
I'd take 700,000 out of the $1 million
You know,
any day.
I
Okay.
would too. I would too. That's why I'm like, and thanks for the Debbie Downer. So I know
Yeah.
it's not like the PPP where it's forgiven, it becomes taxable income. Is there any flags on it? Like I know the conservation easement, that one's a little risky. There's like, it might flag you, it might tag you as something that they'll investigate in. Is the ERC kind of like PPP where it's pretty much a generic one that flies through? Is it more of a higher risk one? What are you guys seeing with that ERC credit?
I'll let John address it, but I think if you document everything appropriately and correctly, and you file the tax returns correctly, the payroll and the income tax returns, then you should be in good shape. And John, I'm not sure if you have anything else to add there, but it's definitely not like the conservation easement deals that are sold. So I think ERC is kind of a slam dunk if you do technically qualify, but that's the importance of talking to somebody like John.
Yeah, I guess I would just add that when we do these calculations and file the tax returns for clients, we make sure up front that these are good credits and would withstand IRS scrutiny so that you don't have to worry about it on the back end. I do think that the IRS recognizes that the dental industry was highly impacted by COVID, and this would be a stimulus program that's aimed, to specifically help out in this industry. So it's a little bit safer from that perspective. And then going forward, I mean, it's just if the IRS, it's no different than filing your income tax return. If the IRS has questions, they have to give you your check first, and then they can come audit you later.
Gotcha. Okay. And does it open up? I thought I heard with conservation easement, and you guys can correct me, that some of those dicier ones, if you do get audited, they only are auditing that section rather than opening up your whole business. I could be misinformed on that. What do you guys know as far as those audits, if it comes back to this ERC or like the conservation, is it whole business or just isolated incidents?
It depends on what they're pulling the tax return for. So if they're pulling it for that, they start pulling strings. They could open up, and it's usually on your personal tax returns where you're making that investment. So there could be potentially exposure of them opening up an audit for your dental practice too.
Gotcha.
And doing a full blown audit. And sometimes I think what's the audit called? Is like a research audit, John, where some select few companies around the country get pulled and they want to look at absolutely everything. And there's not really a rhyme or reason you're getting pulled for audit. It's just part of them building their database, the IRS building their database. And so if you get pulled for one of those, just say some prayers every night. And we also do have a tax controversy group. So if anybody is going through an absolute nightmare of an audit and your CPA is not helping you, we have former IRS agents and attorneys that work with us here at the firm that represent our clients and help them through that process. So you don't have to talk to the IRS auditors.
Yeah, that is, I mean, I think in everything there's risk. And as a business owner, I mean, it is a matter of time before you're stolen from, you're audited, and there's, I mean, something else. I'm sure those are like the main two. It's like, those are just parts of doing business. I think the other one was being sued. So it's like sued, audit, and somebody stealing from you. So like, once you get those 3 boxes checked, you're pretty much good. Till you have those, like, just wait and pray. But that's really, really helpful to know. So Scott, I'm going to pivot back to you. What would you say are some key metrics that a practice should be watching now that you've Debbie Downered that it's taxable income? But I mean, still, I would take taxable income on that. So what are some key metrics?
Exactly. So, some of the metrics, and I've gotten some pretty good feedback and just deep dive into this with a number of clients that are going through the sale process right now. And so the buyers, say specialty dental brands or maybe some other local private equity company, are really diving into these metrics and asking questions.
Before you interrupt on that, before you keep going, I'm going to interrupt you. There we go.
Yeah.
Are you seeing most people are selling to private sellers or to DSOs? Like, what are you seeing with the trends? Because I do agree there's a pretty hot market right now of sales. When they're getting into these metrics, what are you seeing more people are selling to?
So most of my clients are, I don't want to age myself, but around my age. Most of my clients are in their 30s and 40s. Okay. And so I think for some of our older sellers, and that's not really my client base, but usually some of the older, say mid 50s and up, I think that they're more often than not, they're looking at private sale.
Okay.
And then some of these younger, more group practice focused, they're looking at private equity, because private equity has the dollars to buy multiple locations, right? And a private buyer, most likely they're out of dental school, or maybe they're relocating from another state. They don't have the cash or the loan capacity to buy a multi-location practice. And so typically it's going to be the, retiring doctor who's done, he's selling to a single buyer, okay, not private equity. And so usually it's those group practices or specialty group practices that are selling to private equity and getting back in return some pretty healthy multiples on Ebitda. So multiple on Ebitda is, for example, to answer your question, is okay, say your Ebitda for the practice is $500,000, and I'll explain what Ebitda is in a little bit. They're paying anywhere from 6 to I've seen offers for 12x of Ebitda, and it's just absolutely nuts. And so if you're getting 500,000 times 6, that's a pretty good sale price for your practice, right? And so that's why it's so important to track your metrics and have this clean chart of accounts, because when you're going through that due diligence process, we're having clients that we're helping them clean things up, but the buyer and their due diligence team, they essentially hire someone either externally or they have an internal due diligence group. They scrub your financials. It's like an audit. It's essentially like an IRS audit. They're asking questions left and right. You just want to make sure those are as clean as possible, so they know the integrity of your business and your financial statements. And that's what they're measuring your Ebitda on, is your financial statements, and your sell price. It's on those financial statements. You want to make sure those are as clean as possible. And so that's the importance of those clean financial statements that I was talking about earlier.
So with those, does it matter when people are looking? Because I know a lot of business owners will run their own personal expenses through the business, as they should. But when you're looking to sell, are those things?
No one does that, Kiera. Come on. No one runs personal things.
Everybody does, Scott. You told me everything's expensible until you're audited. I remember that.
See no evil, hear no evil. Okay.
But like those things that can be, that are true business expenses, like home offices and whatnot. When you're looking at these metrics, what are some things that you guys are seeing to keep those, to keep your books super squeaky clean if you are looking to sell?
Yeah, and the importance of that, you make a really good point of, everyone's going to have some kind of fluff that they're running through their financial statements. And so I think being clear with your bookkeeper of, okay, this is doctor compensation line, so this goes below the line. And so what does below the line mean? Well, if you can picture it, your financial statements, you got top level revenue, and then you got your variable expenses like your labs, your supplies, some of that payroll. And then below that line is your kind of fixed expenses like your rent, utilities, and so forth. Okay. So that's kind of like your net operating margin, or what I would like to say, that's your Ebitda. That's your true Ebitda right there. Okay. And then below that is your interest expense, because that's not included in your Ebitda. Ebitda is earnings before interest, depreciation, taxes, and amortization. Okay. And so you throw that interest below that net operating margin line. And then also some of those if you have family payroll, they're not going to be part of the Ebitda. So you have that below the line as well. And any of those other kind of fluff expenses, like maybe it's some kind of vehicle expense or so forth. That way, when you're having a client or a due diligence team look at your financials, they'll pick that out pretty easily and say, okay, here's your true Ebitda. And it's easier to go through that process.
But to that point, I think it's also super important to have a good, clean chart of accounts, to have your bookkeeping squeaky clean, rather than running it through. I heard of an office that they were running gold. Like, let's go back to the gold bars that Scott and I were talking about pre-show. He was running gold coins as supplies. And I was like, oh gosh. And now he's trying to have a partner buy into it. And I'm like, but what's true? Like, what is the true value of this practice? How profitable is it really? Because all those things are kind of meshed in there. And I know as a business owner, I don't love to see, like you said, below the line, but I think I didn't realize I was trying to do my own like net worth and how much do I need to make. And I didn't realize how many things the business does do for me, which it should. I mean, I'm a consultant. I've got certain cars. I've got different things that I can run through that truly do help grow our business, but yet they also impact me personally. Take those below the line. So I'm right now bringing on a C-suite executive in our company, I've got to know what my true profitability is to bonus him correctly rather than it being something else. So I think those pieces are really, really paramount to have, even from my standpoint. So good to know. I'm going to ask one more Debbie Downer question. Scott, seeing how many of these practices are going, like we've got the solo sales, but I feel like a lot are selling to DSOs, group practices. What is your projection? Because I think I broke some people's hearts the other day. What is your projection of how long solo practices will run compared to dentistry becoming more like modern medicine? Because I'm like, guys, let's be real. These are all being swooped up by DSOs. DSOs are this is literally what happened with modern medicine and the exact way modern medicine became what it is today. Being Debbie Downer, Scott, I'm going to let you be the Debbie Downer on it. How long do you think private practices have a run based on what people today going for multiples, which I don't blame you. You're in the moment to sell for multiples. Great job. Way to be here at the right time. How long before you think dentistry will become like modern medicine, or do you think it will be?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I don't think it'll get to the point of, okay, the hospitals were picking up every kind of group, whether it's orthopedic group and so forth. There's still those private practices out there in medicine. Dentistry, do I think it'll go to that same extent? No, I think that you're going to have those three different silos of practices. You're going to have the solo docs, you're going to have private group practice docs, and then you're going to have DSO owned, private equity backed practices. I think they're always going to be in those silos, and it's going to shift. It's going to shift. I guarantee it. It's going to keep shifting from solo to group practice to DSO. And so you're going to see that first column of solos dropping, but do I think that's going to go away? No, absolutely not. I think you have a great entrepreneurial group of folks graduating from dental school that want that independence, that want to run their own practice, that truly care about their patients. Not that the DSOs or group practices don't, they do as well, but they truly care about their patients and they want that independence to take care of the public, just like the way that some of these other group practices are. So I don't think it's going to go away. Do I think it's going to scale down? Yes. Do I think that's going to hurt lending rates and everything else that's surrounding the profession? Yeah, it's going to change suppliers and loan options that are out there. It's going to fluctuate over time. But do I think it's going to go away? No. I think there's that generation of folks that want to be independent, and I think the success is out there for all these folks to have. As you know, working with your practices, they probably appreciate the heck out of you when you're changing their life financially and I think work-wise, like taking having that time to take off rather than being chained to your practice. And I think working with a consultant like you, I give props to you because you work with a number of our clients. So I think it's folks will probably sell when they're feeling at that moment of, okay, I can get a good payout and I'm exhausted, I'm tired. So I think you got to run your practice the right way so you feel that independence that you really sought when you left dental school or specialty school. So working with the right team, it's going to give you that, I think, that peace of mind that you're doing everything that you can and you're having a great life, and that work-life balance that everyone's chasing.
Right. So I think that was a really good bow on it. And thank you for those kudos. Likewise, I think we have a good work back and forth working with mutual clients. I think us with CPA firms are always a good peanut butter and jelly. We help grow that for you guys, and you guys make sure that it's profitable. So we have great clean metrics to help go off of. So I would say, guys, I know, Scott, there's so many more things. I want to pick your brain on new items that are coming to play, but I feel like, guys, these are huge pieces. So send the email, get the employee retention credit, find out if you even qualify, and then scrub your chart of accounts, get those nice and clean. And if you're looking to sell, make sure that those things are also in play. Look at those key metrics, watch them. I personally believe the greatest thing that ever happened to me is when I was faced up against the wall and I had to start really learning my numbers. Whether you hate numbers or you don't hate numbers, whether you like to look at it or you don't, I feel like it's your moral obligation as a business owner to get good at reading your P&L and your chart of accounts and knowing what's going on so you can make smarter decisions and protect your patients and your practice and your livelihood as well. So Scott and Jon, it was a full pack. I'm like, oh my gosh, guys, like I'm eating this up. I know I never said I'd work for CPAs, but man, maybe I will. Eide Bailly, dental aid teams applying. It'd be great. It'd be a good time. I have no clue what I'm doing, but I just appreciate you guys with the information you put out, with the love you have for our clients and for our company, and the feelings mutual. So thank both of you for being on today. I super appreciate that.
Thanks a ton, Kiera, for having us, and it's always a blast. Hope to do it again soon.
Always. Well, we've got like new items we got to do, Scott. Like you brought it up with the salt workaround, I think is what you said. And I'm like, I'm dying to know what this is. Like, another day, guys. But please, truly, if they can help you out, reach out to Scott, reach out to Jon. That's Scott Haberman and Jon Stanfield. So be sure to reach out. That was shaberman@eidebailly.com or jstanfield@eidebailly.com as well. So guys, reach out. If you even just want help with CPA, bookkeeping, things like that, they're really fantastic and someone I recommend highly. So guys, get your books in order. Then you can have success and confidence. And as always, thank all of you for listening. And I'll catch you next time on the Dental Aid Team Podcast.
And that wraps it up for another episode of the Dental Aid Team Podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.